Hello, Tristan. We're going to take a look at your aesthetics and control posting here. I see your hold to not to hold or missing from your camera reel. We'll figure that out, find out what that is. I may have lost my settings for these sets on photographs. I realize I should always to document it every step. That's cool. Group one for how deep. So how deep, this is really going to be all about, the depth of field. What was this meant to illustrate to you? This was meant to connect the f-stop numbers, which are somewhat abstract, 8, 5.6, 11, 16, 20. What do all these numbers mean, right? They're just numbers to memorize until you connect them with a picture, until you connect them with a visual. And the visual that I am introducing to connect them to has to do with the depth of field. How deep is a focus? So with an aperture that is wide open, which is something like 5.6 or 4, that gives you a shallow depth of field. Wide open, shallow, wide open, shallow. So 4 gives you wide open, shallow depth of field. So things that are deep are out of focus, things that are shallow are out of focus. Only the thing that you have critically focused the lens on will be in focus. The opposite happens as the lens starts to get smaller and smaller, things appear to be getting into focus. So that's depth of field. And that's what this experiment was meant to just show you. That's really what it is. We don't have to make it any more complicated than that. And so what we do is we set it up to do that. Now, your exposure is kind of off on this, and you've got a very cool color setting here, which is also sort of throwing things off. And so that's kind of a little bit strange. So you can see how bright this is, which is throwing things off. That said, we are getting the illusion. It's corrected here on that. However, it looks like your focus is in the back here for some reason, a little bit more than it should be. However, we are getting that depth of field phenomenon once again. So here you have the tablecloth that is soft. You have here that is in focus, here that's slightly soft back here. As we continue to step forward, you can see that the tablecloth in the front now becomes more and more in focus as you go. That's depth of field. Greater depth of field as the aperture gets smaller. Very simply, that's what I wanted you guys to experiment. That's what I wanted you to observe. Now, you can see you're sort of, the camera's moving around and that kind of thing. This is just really how careful are you being, right? And you start to realize the quality of a tripod can go a long way toward what photography is all about. We take for granted some of these things sometimes. When you invest in these kinds of things later on for yourself, think about that. Photography, you want to take care with photography. It is a mechanical process to some extent. You want to be able to get beyond that and not have it be a technical process, but there are some techniques where you want your craft to be perfect. And you want to be able to take a photograph over and over again and not have the camera move at all between each of them. You want to be able to change your camera settings on the camera and not have the camera move at all in between those settings. So that's just something that through time and practice you can do. Now, the equivalent exposures, that is nothing more than a math problem, really. Did you get it correct? So let's look. Did you get it correct? We started off at a 60th at f8, and then we asked you to make a correction. We asked you to take the aperture and change it. So we went 22 from f8. So that is f8, that's 11, 16, 22. So that's those steps. And then we went from a 60th to a 30th, 15th, 8. So that's 3 and 3, opposite directions. Good job. You did it. Then we take it f800. So we went from 22, we stayed. So then we went f8, we went 15, a 30th. That's 2 steps. We went from 200, 400, 800. You got the math problem correct. So it's that simple. You got the math problem correct. And guess what? all 3 images look correct. So that's the consequence. That's what I'm talking about. Accuracy is you've got both the solution correct as far as exposure and the images reflected. They're identical. Again, with this one, you got them identical. So good job, Tristan. Very good. Let's take a look at your You Know Better. Now, I was looking at these and what you were talking about and how you were going with sort of a thematic thing happening here with these 3 different things. And I think that's fine. Here you can definitely see that there's some movement going on in this image. We're not quite close enough. I think you could be doing a lot more with composition here. You're setting up this kind of altar thing, which I think is fantastic. I think that's cool. But I do believe that we could be getting in and doing a much more dynamic composition. This almost seems like it wants to be a vertical composition, the way you've got it set up. The light is even on the card. I think that's fine, but we could be doing something a little bit more interesting lighting wise on the stones and on the blue flowers and things. You could just take it a lot farther and play with it and have a little bit more fun with that. This is a little bit more playful. I like what you're doing here, where you're doing the apple juice, the thematic. You got, just 2 images where you're going 1, 2, like that. Again, I think you can get right up in here and get a lot closer to it. Here we're taking photographs of bottles and jars rather than getting in there and using them to create the dynamic composition. Treat these just as if they were the blank bottles. Right? There's no difference. Even though they have meaning to you, you still want to address them as if they were that. This is a figure. They should be vertical, right? I really like what you're doing here, but here we have an image. What happened to the background there? And what we have that background light going and then it disappears. I don't think we need this first image. So we could drop that first image probably altogether. The rest of it is kind of interesting with this little dance thing that's going on. However, he moves just a little bit there. That's a craft error. Here he's perfect, right? Where he's doing a little run, that he moves like that is more of a crafting error. So you, again, take your time, be very precise, be very accurate, move in just a little bit more, utilize the lighting as you would have if these were bottles or bones and that kind of thing. You've got some really great ideas here. I think we could just take a little bit more time on it, and you would just really have something unique and interesting here. I hope you find your other images. We'll take a look to see if we need to resubmit those or not. You may not have to grade-wise. We'll take a look at that perhaps after you get the Follow the Sun images up there. We'll look at where your grade stands maybe after the Thanksgiving break and see if we need to resubmit any of this stuff to bump your grade up or not. So, all right, we'll see you in the studio. Bye-bye now.